Alright guys, welcome to this is a Atomfall Speedrun. This is a sub 30-minute run with loading zones, sub 23, also 24 minutes without loading zones, which I believe currently stands at the world record. So we're just going to talk through it and we're going to go through some little tips and tricks and different things you can take along the way. So starting off there, you're going to want to go with the second and then third options for the scientist in order to get the keycard to drop. If you do mess that up, you can just punch and munch and loot it off the body. You only need about half a second, it's not the end of the world there. You can go straight ahead there rather than turning left, and there is a cloth and two whiskies, and to the right is an extra cloth and a loot crate that occasionally has some spare meds in. So if you want the extra fallback of having an extra bandage, then you can loot those as well. It takes about between 7 and 10 seconds to do both routes. If you do choose to do that as you're waiting for that door to open just a moment ago, you can then craft your bandage in that time. Once you've done that, we're just going to head straight out of the bunker here, and we're going to head left straight out, and we're going to head round towards the Prader, towards the Skennermoor exit of Slattendale. There's a few things you want to bear in mind for this run. One of the things is that you will need at least 2 first aid kits. Having 3 is good for safety if you don't get the perfect RNG in terms of spawns and being spotted by guards. So this one I do actually get 2. So having the extra meds and things, there's a couple of places on the way that will loot just to try and get the extra bandage or painkillers or burn salve. They're the 3 things that if you find are going to be useful, and it's worth that extra second to loot something for the chance of then getting that medication drop. So there are 2 ways of doing this run. One is, so if I need 5 batteries, one is to get 2 batteries up from Nora at the top of Skennermoor, one from the pond and one from Nora herself, and the other is to take out 2 robots along the way. This run goes round and takes the ones from the north of Skennermoor, from Nora, so we don't have to fight any robots, so it's slightly more reliable that way. It is slightly slower across the whole thing if you get really good spawns, but it's more reliable. This is the first body we're going to spend a moment to search here, looking for meds. Sometimes you can get bandage drops there, sometimes you can get painkillers or burn salves, and you can also get grenades and nail bombs and things that are useful if you're going down the robot route. Now here, jump over slightly, don't quite get it right there, so it's quicker to run round if you fail to jump the first time. One thing we've got to bear in mind throughout the whole run is that every time you drop off somewhere, you have a sort of crouching animation, which actually takes an extra second, then starts sprinting again. So it's going to take more than a second to crouch and go round. It's faster. I don't know you. Here we're going straight to Molly, straight takedown, and we're going to just loot everything off her, and we're after that atomic battery. So from that point, we're going to run straight across the pond, completely ignore the outlaws on the left, and there's often a pair spawn on the right at the bottom of the rail yard as well. Completely ignore those, they're not going to aggro onto you in time, and if they do, they're not going to hit you. They have rifles there, so they're not accurate enough for that. So we're going to go straight up, and we're going to go straight into the interchange here. Now the pathing here is fairly simple. We're just going straight across the pond, try and land on the step on the rocks rather than in the water. It's slightly quicker if you get into a deep patch of water. And here, if you jump at the right point, you can actually jump without vaulting up as well, so you jump straight up. It takes about half a second to get the jump out of there. Up ladder here, and then we're just going to vault up these slabs here. Now, at the bottom of this bus here, there is a extra loot crate that we are going to spend a couple of seconds to go across to and loot, because this is one of the locations that you can get as a rare spawn. You can actually get a full first aid kit in there, so you quite often get a med. I think in this case I got rifle ammo, but you often get painkillers or burn salve, or bandage. You can actually also get a full med kit spawn there. It is quite a rare chance, but it's worth spending the extra time looking, because if you do, it makes things much easier and much more reliable later on. First part of the run is fairly simple, just a case of going through into the interchange, turning on the power. So it's worth checking here, there's 2 tables there, so you can very rarely get cloth to spawn on those. The common spawns there are glass bottles and string, neither of which are going to be helpful for us, but I have seen cloth spawn there occasionally, so it's worth checking again, just to have that extra bandage later on, if you need it. Just going to run straight through here, and you're going to want to strafe slightly to the left here, because you can get past the bats without taking any damage at all. The little bit of damage they do, it often doesn't matter, but it just means that if you make a mistake later on, you take a bit of fall damage or whatever, you've got that extra little buffer. Or if you catch one of the electrical conduits, which will activate in a moment, you've got that extra buffer if you don't take any damage there. So we're just going to go straight in. You want to pop the battery in straight away before you loot the body, because then it takes a few seconds to boot up. And then 2 different ways. You can just take the battery there if you want and not loot the whole body. You lose about 3 seconds in terms of looting and then taking all the items from the body there, but it's worth it for me in terms of the extra time you save when we use the pistol later on. And there is an optimal point to reload the pistol, which I'll point out in just a moment. So I'm going down straight here into Data Store Charlie, pop the battery in, and then we're just going straight back out into Slattendale and make our way down to Wyndham Village. Just need to watch out for those conduits running down from the ceiling now that the power is back on. You don't want to take that extra bit of damage. Now you can just run straight here, you can completely ignore the turret. If you just run straight, it won't have time to lock onto you before you get on the corner. And here again with the bandits, just make sure you stay flat to the side, and then you can just run straight past them. Worth doing a bit of a strafe here, just to double check and make sure that those extra shots don't hit you, but they're fairly inaccurate being the outlaws anyway. So back out into Slattendale here, and we're going to head straight down the way we came. So we're going to go a little bit further to the right here rather than going straight off the edge, again because it is that slightly quicker to keep running rather than drop off the edge and then have the crouching animation. So we're going to go straight, and again that's why we're taking these steps one at a time. If you jump you can make it down 2 at once, but you don't want the animation. Now once you've done 3 or 4 handles here, you're going to hold crouch and you can drop down without taking any fall damage. Saves 2 seconds there, and then there again make sure you land on the top platform and then the middle one rather than all the way down for the crouch animation. This is the first place that you can load the pistol, so as you're reloading in Atomfall, obviously you're going to slow down and lose time, so you want to start reloading just before the icon of the E button comes up to enter Wyndham Village, because then as the loading zone goes through, you actually cut short the animation. It cuts off about 40% of the animation, so as you can see, as soon as the screen's going black, it pops up saying there's 5 bullets loaded. At that point the gun's actually loaded, so the rest of the animation doesn't actually matter. So if you don't get it quite right there, you can also reload as we're going into the church, which is where we're going to head to now. Now, if you are doing the run where you take out 2 robots instead, this is going to be one of the first robots that you want to take out. So you've got a robot there, and you've got the first guard. So there are going to be 2 that you want to take out. So that helps you to get a grenade or a nail bomb in that first outlaw, but make that a bit easier as well, because you take the guard out straight away from that. Now we're going to run here. You're going to go between the gravestones, and then just behind this bush you want to drop down, then you don't get the crouching animation. Pull the pistol out as we enter the St. Catherine's Church, and we're going to go straight round, and you can do a takedown on the vicar or you can hit him with the club, but it is slightly quicker just to go for the headshot and then loot the key. But ignore her, she runs out and tells the guards nothing actually happens, so we're going to want to go straight up and we're going to want to loot the vicar's chest. Now if you did get the bandage early on, you can jump straight off the railing there and use the bandage to heal back up the health as we're going into the interchange in a moment. If you didn't get this bandage, it's worth just going round. It loses about a second in terms of going round rather than jumping off, but if you don't have the bandage, it's more reliable to do it that way round. So cutting right here, and we're going to want to go a little bit high and then jump downwards over the wall, and again here cut a little bit onto the high ground, straight over the railing and into the interchange. You can just ignore all the guards here, they don't lock onto you in time even though you are trespassing. So coming up is going to be the first sort of slightly difficult bit of the run that it's worth sort of practicing a couple of times before you do a full run. So we're going into the interchange again here. And those who play the game, you will know that this is the entrance and the data store that's full of the alien poison. So we're going to pop the keycard in as normal, and rather than just standing here this time, we are going to go back to the body here, because he will always have a bandage on him. So it's worth having that extra bandage there. Now here it's worth taking a moment just to reorganise your inventory. I always drop anything that's not going to be used. We're not actually going to use the scythe here, but just drop it just because you can hit it if you get really spawns on meds later on, and you don't want to be spending time sort of organising it later on. So we don't need to bother about the main door here. We're going straight into Store Alpha, and we're going down. So this is the first sort of tricky bit. We're going to run forwards until it goes pink, and then turn halfway up the stairs, and then time to run down, and again here run forward until the bomb turns pink, and then back to where the other one is, and then just pop your battery in, and your health will get quite low down. The poison will fade in time. That's just worth backing a couple of times before you do it. That's the first sort of tricky section of the run, really. So we're going to head back out again now. Again, ignore the turret. It doesn't lock onto you in time. You get far enough out of range before it starts firing. So we're going straight back out into Wyndham Village, and we're going to turn right and head straight to Scanamua now. So there's actually nothing stopping you from doing the entire next section of the run until you get to the point where you get first aid kits with this much health. It does make it slightly riskier if you do get unfortunate spawns on things. So if you do want to use bandage and things, you can do as you're running along here now. You can take the extra moment to bandage up if you've got the spare ones. I'd say if you do decide to jump off the top of the railing by the Vicar's chest, make sure you do bandage up before you go down instead to start Alpha, because it will always take you down to the amount of health I have now. That's as much as you can have by completing that. If you do try and run straight past the bombs, if either of the bombs hit you, you won't actually have enough health to get out unless you have a first aid kit drop in along the way, in which case it counts as part of the first aid kit because of the infected effect, but you do get a bit more health. So there, again, rather than jumping straight off, we're going to sort of shimmy our way down the rock face. Just again, that character animation is an extra second loss every time you do that before you start sprinting again. So we're going to keep on heading forwards. Now again, if you're doing the robot run, that robot, the fire robot to the right hand side there, that will be the second one you're going to want to take out in order to get the battery. So this is the first bunker that we're going to need to go into, and this is the time we're going to get the Windfall keycard. So we're going straight in. Now you will always come across two guards here. The way they spawn is random. One always has a pistol, one always has a club. Ideally what you want is you want this one at the front here to have the pistol, and the one at the back to have the club. In this case it's coming around, and even with a straight from there, he just get a shot off as I'm squeezing through. That's why it's worth just bearing in mind, depending on what your health is, you might want to use that bandage that you've got just before you come in here, just in case. And I just use it now just to make things a little bit safer going forward in the next section. So, looking this side, this is where we're going to get our Windfall keycard from. And now the important thing you want from this room is this room will always have a first aid kit in it. At random where it spawns, it can have more meds, it's got an extra bandage there as well, but this room will always have a first aid kit in somewhere. So we do spend the next couple of seconds looting around, and it's in one of the crates this time there. Now I did also pick up the training stimulants there. We'll get onto those later and using those, and then explain why I picked those up and what we use them for when we get into just before we go into Obi-Wan. You've got a few seconds there, so I'll explain that later. Looking at this bunker, for this run where we're not taking out the robots, this is where we go and get our 4th and 5th atomic batteries. So we're heading to the left hand side of this house, and we're just going to run straight up, and we're heading towards Nora's barn to the north side of Skellermoor. So we'll just head up to the left hand side of this house here. There's often one or two groups of outlaws on the left during this section. Again, you can completely ignore them. They won't lock onto you in time as long as you keep a little bit of distance. If you follow this line that I'm following, unless you get really unfortunate spawns, they won't be close enough to argue onto you straight away. And even if they do, chances are if you just run away strafing a little bit, they'll soon leave you alone. This is where we're going to get our 4th battery. Now it's important here to run around the outside of the lake rather than cut through in order to not spawn the piranhas earlier. And slightly unoptimal here actually, you want to be taking the battery as you're moving round, where you can see the piranhas on the left. So we're going to jump a couple of times here just to make sure they don't hit us, just to maintain that little bit of extra health. So straight through here, we can completely ignore the traps. There's a trigger trap there and then a Molotov cocktail. Completely ignore those, straight into Nora's barn, and we're going for the same thing we did with Molly. We're going to go straight for the takedown and then the full loot. We do get a bit unfortunate here, often she doesn't turn around, so it takes a couple of seconds to run round to there. Just make sure you're behind her and then do the takedown. Okay, and we're going to head back out, and now we're going to cut down through the next section, and we're heading towards the bunker with the actual disruptor device in itself. So we've got the key card, now we need the device. So going straight forward here, we're going to go up the steps and then vault over here. Just bear in mind on the ledge there, you do often get ammo. There is a very fair chance that you can get meds there, painkillers, burn salve, that sort of thing, which aren't essential for this one at all, but make things a little bit safer and more reliable if you do get them. Just bear that in mind. We're going to run here, we're going to want to jump over the wall without vaulting, left a little bit to avoid setting the alarm off, and then as you go through this gap, you're going to want to cut right because there is a mine there in the centre. Now here it's a little bit random which way you go, it depends on the RNG. There's a guard there, so I decided to cut round, and he does actually see me then and locks on really quickly, so I'm going to take one shot from him, and then we're just going to cut through over these two walls, and we're going to drop into this bunker here in where the railings are. Now there's often a guard in front there where the gate is on the floor. This time he's found around, so we've got unlucky RNG with the guard walking past the road, but good RNG with the guard not being there. So you can also get 2 first aid kits in here, which makes things easier. So straight ahead there, where you're looking on the railing, there's sometimes a bandage there as well, which is worth bearing in mind and keeping an eye on. But we're going to go straight in here, extra piece of cloth, and then into the wing from right. So we've got a first aid kit there, and the disruptor device in the chest, and you sometimes get one lower down to the right hand side there as well. So that's why I just loot all that in one go, and then you can work out what you've got. If the guard does follow you down here because he's spawned on top, you can just run around him. It's worth kicking him once just before you go up the ladder, just so his stagger animation doesn't take that extra shot at you. Now, if you do have painkillers and antidotes, this is where you're going to want to use them before you come out here. So you see, I have to use the bandage just to heal up to full health, because this next section is the next sort of difficult part, and that's getting up through the protocol camp, and then we've got the Feral's entrance into the interchange. So using painkillers and things here, if you do get any pot shots from the protocol guards, they'll do less damage, and also means the actual Ferals themselves will do less damage. The Ferals will always hit you at least once. So really fortunate spawns here actually in terms of the protocol camps. There can be a guard there by the log pile, and there's almost always a guard here. However, this time he's climbing actively, so I just take a second and then run past as he's going from out of line of sight. Sees me just going through the window, doesn't make any difference at this point, and then we get really lucky in terms of the robot spawn. So the robot patrols up and down this road here. He's at the top at the moment. He's often quite next to, quite near to where you're going up, so he can be difficult to avoid. Generally, with a little bit of strafing, you can avoid his fire, but if you do get caught much here and you don't have the extra bandage, that is the end of the run, unfortunately. Because if you get unlucky with the barrels, they can deal, well, they can kill you, but they often deal between 60 and 80% of your max health. This section, just cut through to the right, a little bit of strafing here. Protocol guards are more accurate than the outlaws, so bear that in mind. But chances are you can avoid getting hit or getting hit once. So getting hit once there is where you need extra bandage from the very start as well. So that's where it's a little bit more reliable to go that way and collect those extra cloth and whiskies. But not always necessary as shown here. So we're going to pop through, again, just double check what you've got, take your time to reorganise your inventory. I like to have first aid kits and meds on the right hand side and magnum batteries on the left. So I do just pop radiation processes here, mainly because there's no reason not to. They make very little difference to any point in the run, and I've taken inventory space at this point, so I use them. 2 fails here, so head to the one on the left and straight towards him so the one on the right doesn't spawn, or doesn't break out too quickly. And you see I do get hit just the once there, so it's actually a really, really good fails run. Often you do get hit a lot more than that, particularly if the one to the right wakes up as well. And they will wake up even if you are crouch walking or just walking through, as well as just sprinting straight at the one on the left and then cut right and straight under that shutter there. So dropping into Bravo and dropping in the battery, and then we're going to run straight back up and through the central console to Delta. Now, if you do Delta the first time rather than Charlie at the start, when you first come in from Slatendale, you can go through the underground here, and it saves between 5 and 10 seconds, but it is slightly more riskier, so it's a bit more reliable going this way. So going through the underground section, you're going to have the robot and the turrets there, and if either of those lock onto you, which they wouldn't normally do, but if you get a bad spawn, they can, that extra bit of damage there, again, can be the difference, because we are going to need full health in a moment. So we're going to pop the last battery in, and then we're going to go up and activate all of the central consoles, and then we're going to activate the entrance to open one itself. One thing just bear in mind, just as you run through here, just make sure you're careful with those electrical conduits, because that little bit of damage is actually an issue at this point, if you don't have the extra medkits. So one thing to bear in mind with these is that, although I messed it up there, the actual box doesn't have to go white, it's just the green button on the device. So as soon as the button on the device goes green, you can actually activate those. And then we're going to go over here and take this extra training skill. This is why we picked up the ones previously. We're going to want to go in and we're going to want to take the Fortitude skill here, which gives us the extra bit of max health. Now here I do decide to use the first aid kit just because I have it for safety. But with the Fortitude skill acquired, I don't actually need to use it. So going forward to this next section, if you've used the Fortitude skill, you've got to spend that extra second to get the training stimulants, then your health needs to be above the first bar. If you haven't used Fortitude, you do need to be at full health for this. So I did decide to use the first aid kit there because I have the spare one. You will need 2 from this point or you'll need the ability to get back to full health after this next section. As it arrives there, you're going to want to crouch, and then uncrouch as soon as you get under, you get through about a quarter of a second faster. It's just a little time save there. And then we're going down into the Windfall site itself. So it's not worth using anything in this room. There's nothing in this room that can help us at this point in the game. So we're going straight down and straight forward through these doors. You're going to want to avoid standing on the plant itself. Just go around and up. And just before we go through this grate here, you're going to want to use that second first aid kit. Ignore the feral, make sure you dodge the electrical conduit, and make sure here, rather than jumping down, you drop down each step one at a time so you don't take any damage. I did explore slightly too far there and got the pouch animation, damage in the bottom part there. So you see, as we need to be at full health there because we've got the two acidic poison zones from the alien poisons. So yeah, it's got a little bit of health there, just makes a difference. So it is slightly quicker to, on the way back, go along the left-hand side. So the other side where we're currently going. And this one I will come back this way because I'm more comfortable this way and it's more reliable for me. But I think it is about 10 seconds quicker to go the other way. So we're going to drop down here. You'll often get a couple of thralls spawning in this sort of section with the plant here. You can just run straight past them. Thralls are too slow to actually do any damage if you just keep running. And here's the last sort of step where you make sure you go down one step at a time, just so you don't take any extra damage and make sure those insects don't bite you. Now, if at any point during the run you did manage to get any burn salves, this is where you're going to want to use them, and if you've got any spare meds, you can use them here. It just makes the next section slightly safer in terms of getting caught if you do buy the fire robots. It's the last sort of tricky section of the run. Just double checking that if I do have any spare meds. Didn't think I did, but it's worth just double checking. Now you can run to this point and then I just walk down from here because we need to wait a second anyway. In this run where we're not fighting the robots, you just take a second, you can just walk down from here to wait for him to get in front of the car. So there, now that he's alongside the run, there's the car, we can sprint forwards. Just crouch for a second to the end and then you can just run forwards and he will go on to you, but if you just cut in and out, he is far enough behind you that he won't hit you with the flames. And it's a very similar process going back the other way again. So we're going to want to sprint forward to this point, and then you crouch out of sight and wait for him to get alongside you. So you move to the front of the box here, wait for him to get alongside you, and then as soon as he is, you can run forward, and as long as you keep the trucks between you and him, you'll stay out of range. So just stay to the left of the truck, the flash there was the explosive barrel going off. Again, as long as the truck's between you and the barrel, it's not going to do any damage to you. This guy got slightly unlucky with the spawn, often he spawns slightly further round and then stops here. And here you can actually just run straight forward. I took a couple of seconds rather than going, for no real reason, that's just a time pass really. But you want to strafe a little far to the left towards the staircase there, and then you're out of range, and he often just de-aggroes straight away. And with the final one, just left hand side, and again cut round here, and he'll de-aggro. Now here you're going to be careful because you've got bombs on the left, you've got the cloud on the right, and you've got the plant on the right. So I actually got a little bit too close to the plant here, it does end up hitting me once. So that's why I use the first aid kit at the start to give it a little bit of extra buffer, and that's what your skill comes in helping there to make it a bit safer. Just make sure you stay away from the plants, really, they're the most dangerous ones there, the explosive plants. I'm running up here to the final bomb activator now. As often a thrall spawns just on the junction there, you can again just run straight past him. If you're not super confident, then one kick gives you enough time to activate the button and then run out before he recovers. And likewise with the thrall that sometimes spawns at the bottom of the stairs there, you can just run straight past without any issues. And it's basically now just a straight run back out. Make sure you activate the bombs on the left, and then we're just heading straight back out the way we came in, all the way back to the very first bunker at the start. Now, a lot of this run you will be at 180 heart rate. It actually makes no difference in terms of speed running at that point. The only difference is if you are doing melee fighting or kicking and things, they are slightly slower when you're at full heart rate. So in terms of affecting the run, it doesn't, it's just the sound effect and the slight vignette on the screen that you get from it. So you can just completely ignore that really. Now here, as I say, it's slightly quicker to go to the right hand side, but it's more reliable to go to the left. And the reason it's slightly quicker is because, as you'll see on the left, those slabs that we came down, you can't jump up those, you have to full top each one, so it is about 10 seconds, as I say, going back the left way here, but it's just slightly more reliable, so that's the way I go this run. And then again, just making sure we're careful of the plan here, just cut right and then along the wall, and we're going to be fine. Now here, if you jump at an angle like that, you can actually get all the way up without vaulting. It's quite a difficult jump to do, and in that case, didn't work out properly there, so we do vault there. But you can save about a second and a half with the vaulting animation there if you get that angle jump right. Now, the only thing to worry about along here is druids spawn with bows. They're called range druids technically, which I thought he was at first. When I was doing the fun, I was actually quite worried at this point. But he only has a knife, that's not an issue. So we're going to run straight past all of them. We don't want to fight any of them. The biggest issue is what it is if one spawns there with a bow. They often do pot shot at you and are quite accurate on the first shot. All of the druids in here and Mother Jargo there, completely ignore. Just cut to the left-hand side of the plants here and we avoid the walls. And again with this one here. And this is the final room here. We can get 2 druids spawning here with bows. In this case, neither of them had bows and neither of them locked on. So it's fairly random where they are at that point, depending how the run's been going so far and what RNG you get. So we're going straight back out now, leaving the windstill side to the interchange, and it's basically going to be a straight run now forwards, back into the Slattendale exit where we first came in. So there's only sort of 1, maybe 2 more sort of slightly tricky bits, but they're fairly simple if you just keep running and a little bit of strafing. So as we come out of the entrance here and we call back under the grate, we are going to run into a gunfight. We're going to recruit the protocol soldiers right up to the outlaws, but we just cut around them and generally they leave them alone. So we duck under here and there'll be all sorts going on, there'll be fire, there'll be all sorts. Just cut round to the right hand side here and you can avoid all the protocol guards. And most of the outlaws are generally too preoccupied. I never have one spawn in there where the guy on the right did there. He did in this case, so a little bit of strafing there. They're not particularly accurate to the outlaws. And then, as I say, we just back out into the Slattendale exit. And this time we're going to go straight rather than cutting down to the right hand side. So we're heading back to the back to the first bunker now, back to the very first room, in fact, when we first wake up. So we're going to go straight on down, and again we're going to run down the ramps here rather than dropping off, just to save that animation where possible. And in this one you want to get the slide animation rather than dropping down, because again it's slightly quicker coming out of the slide animation than the crouching animation is. It's about half a second quicker actually to do that one. The 2 ways you can go here, so you can cut round to the left or you can drop down past these guys, and again you're looking for that sliding animation rather than the dropping animation. On the last one you always drop. Now there's a lot of outlaws here. They very rarely have guns on this spawn here. They usually have cricket bats or clubs, so you can just run straight past them. The guy at the top here did have a rifle, but he was facing the other way, so it didn't quite lock on in time for me to be able to get over the barrier. Left hand side of the house here, and we're going to be heading straight up the stairs on the left hand side here, and then again on the stairs up the next level. So you're going to be cutting right here. Now you can jump over the little valley there rather than going over the bridge. If you do jump over, it saves about half a second, but you make the jump about 50% of the time. And if you don't make the jump, you lose about a second. So it's more reliable to go over the bridge, but if you want a really good run, it is worth trying the jump if you're happy to potentially lose that extra second. And again here, if you catch on the rocks coming out of the stream, it's quicker to go over the bridge. If you don't catch on the rocks, you need to move right and left a little bit there. If you don't catch them, again it saves about half a second, and if you do catch on the rocks, you lose about a second compared to going over the bridge. So it's just, at this point, whether you want the absolute fastest way or what's most reliable and competitive over different runs. So dropping down back into bunker L8 here, which is where we started and where we're going to end. Now the last thing you're going to come up against is there will always be a thrall in here. Again, thrall's really slow, we can just run straight past him, and you can actually run quite close to him here without him getting hit as well, particularly if you've got a health buffer. If you're a little bit concerned, just do a little bit higher berth, but you can run right past him there. And then by the time you're caught under, you won't have caught up in time, so it's not an issue. So we're going to be going straight down, cutting left into the room, and then when we get into the phone, we're going to want to use the middle button that says we would like to leave. And as soon as you click that, that's when your run ends. So the run starts as soon as you get in control, and as soon as we click that middle button, that's when our run ends. Hope that was helpful for you guys. Anything else that you want, any more tips and tricks, any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you.